Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged's Tech Talk Tuesday. Today's topic is local tactics. My name is Rick Smith, and I am your host. I am joined as normal by my co-host, the one and only Mr. Paco Lebron. How are you, sir?
Boy, Mr. Rick Smith, I'm better than good, better than most on this fine full Tuesday. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm winding down, feeling good, enjoying my week. So I could say things are great. Things are great. Can't complain at all.
I hear that
At
because who's going to listen?
That's true too. That's true too. As you all know, if you're a listener, this is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help you run and grow your IT service business. Whether you're a one person shop or you're leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Now, before Paco and I dive into today's topic, we like to give a quick announcement, as we always do, about our favorite topic, and that would be Mr. Paco.
I'm going to go with that is probably not St. Patrick's Day because that just passed. I'm probably thinking you're talking about, I think, our favorite thing. Oh, wrong shoulder. TechCon Unplugged.
That's exactly right, sir. That's exactly right. TechCon Unplugged is happening for us this year, September 7th to the 10th at the Delta Hotel in Woodbridge, New Jersey. As I like to say, it's our annual gathering of IT business owners, techs, and vendors in the space. There you will learn from like-minded business owners in panels and breakout sessions, gain key takeaways, from partners and vendors in the community. And my absolute favorite part, as Paco was famous for saying, is where the magic happens. Is that you get to experience those one-on-one and spontaneous group conversations where great friendships are built, relationships are cultivated, and ideas are exchanged. TechCon Unplugged tickets are on sale now at techconunplugged.com. We do encourage you to take advantage of the vastly approaching end of the early bird ticket sales, which is March 31st. Those tickets are right now $199. So we encourage you to go to TechCon Unplugged and get your tickets. We look forward to seeing you there. So, Paco, my friend, good week. No, good weekend, excuse me.
Yeah, it was a good week. Good week / good weekend / last week. Definitely interesting for the mere fact of I had been over at CompTIA CCF, which was a great time. Got a touch with a lot of our favorite people here. Marnie Stockman over at Lifecycle Insights, Juan Fernandez, John Harden, same similar cats that we always talk to. Caught up with Rob Ray, who we just released the episode last week with as well. We'll be chatting with him at the end of this month as well. So all in all, good information, good topics, a lot of great people I think we should have on the show. There are quite a lot of great brains that have a lot of great information. So all in all, really good. We went to a client's house on Thursday for an install for AT&T. Man, AT&T, I really want to love you. I have them here internally in my house. Fiber's great, but I just did not understand why they just could not do a simple speed test. And I guess this will be my story for the week is double check your work, man. Double check your work. So I have a client, they work from home along in their office, business law firm. And so, he's having a hard time where the upload speeds for whatever reason are fluctuating. So he was on their AT&T plan before, 50 megs up, or I'm sorry, make 50 megs down, 10 megs up. But for whatever reason, the 10 megs up would go from 10 megs to 172 kilobytes per second for whatever. Yeah. So it's bad, really bad, right? Like he just, Outlook is freezing to update. Him trying to get into his line of business software, it's terrible. So, on the recommendation of mine, I said, you know what, let's just switch you to fiber. It's the same price, as what you're paying for the U versus 50. Just do that. He's like, all right, cool, let's do that. So we contacted them. They got it taken care of. Scheduled the on-site. We waited around. AT&T guy came at like 11:30. He was not done until 3:30.
Wow.
And so this was like him installing, kind of going through all this or whatever. But when we looked at the box, we noticed that it was the same box as before. They somehow connected some adapter to the fiber connector to the existing box before. And we just couldn't realize why. We assumed it was something to do with the TV for Uverse, but that was kind of where we got it from. Well, I get a call from my client later on the month in the day and says, "Man, the stuff it's still not working. I'm still having a hard time. We did the upload speed down to 172 kilobytes." And I was like, "That's impossible. You're on a freaking fiber connection. There's no way." So finally, I was like, "It has to be that box." Like that box. So we talked to AT&T. We go through the whole thing. Turns out he's had that box since 2016. So for 7 years, he's had that box. So why in the world would the tech just leave that box? And he's like, I'm all about, the tech's trying to reuse what the client has there, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Not only do we figure out why he left it, it was because the client had one old coaxial receiver in the living room. And I was like, oh, well, because he probably has it for so long, whatever. He's like, look, we could send you a wireless receiver, but your mileage may vary. He's just, oh yeah, I got 2 of those in the other rooms. I'm sorry, what? So the tech already saw that it was a wireless receiver. So he could have easily just updated it with a wireless receiver, put the new box in, and we wouldn't have had this problem. So of course, AT&T mails all the crap to him, all the modem and the wireless receiver. So guess what I got to do early tomorrow morning is go down there, install this thing for him, make sure everything's working right, and then kind of go from there. So I'm a little annoyed just for the fact that I wasn't supposed to do an additional visit. And obviously for his on-sites, we charge him because it's outside of the scope. But the point is that he had to go through all this whole process, and now I have to kill an entire Monday morning that I didn't expect to go. So it's just one of those annoying pieces. That story is, double check your vendor's work, because I could have easily just ran a speed test and just to see the degradation of the signal to have it keep going, or I should have just pushed it for him to get the new box. Instead of using that old piece of stuff Uverse box from there. So that's my story of pain from dealing with a vendor. But also as a tip, I found out that if you have a Comcast business account, that you can actually do like a multi-tenant / delegate access to all your business clients' accounts. So apparently, if you have a Comcast business account, you can actually request delegate access to your other clients that are on Comcast, and you can actually manage their stuff from that. So I learned that this week. So that's a tip / story for you all when it comes to ISPs.
Didn't know that.
Did not know that either.
My story is really quick, and it's just I'm gonna just end it with a tip of neatness counts for everything you do. So I had to do on Friday. I had to go and do a install of a new client, and it was really supposed to be a cabinet cleanup. Okay. And what it turned out is just, again, going back to the vendor, and I'll just leave it this way. It goes back to the same thing. How your client had, a couple other boxes in their room. Mm-hmm. This client had 3 boxes connected at the same time. Only one is running, but why the installer chose not to take away the other boxes just baffles me. So I go in there. There's supposed to be a FiOS connection, and then a cable line from another Spectrum, which is going to be the backup connection, right? I get there. Verizon's box is there, installed, sitting there on the side, just waiting to be, connected. Only the fibers run into the Verizon modem, which is great. The Spectrum has two modems connected, and I forgot what they call those, the boxes that take phone connections, whatever they call those modems that take the phone connections,
type looking ones.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So now all 3 of those are run on a splitter coming on the cable, and all 3 are connected. So I have to, now the cabinet's a mess. So I have to go through and figure out why these 3 boxes connected. Turns out when the guy came to connect the new box because the company moved, they brought the other 2 boxes. He just connected them. They brought the other 2 boxes, which they were no longer going to need anymore. He just connected his box, the new box he brought, left the other 2 connected, and went on about his business.
You gotta
So
love it.
so it's basically a mess, and then you get to the point where you're nervous because you don't want to disconnect nothing, and then something else is running. But I had to check trace lines to make sure that there was no lines going anywhere else coming from another other 2 boxes, which turned out there were not. But it's just, and I have OCD when it comes to cleaning, doing cabinet and cabling. I like for it to be neat because I like to be able to come back to it and know where everything is and not have to fumble through things. So I spent an extra hour and a half basically cleaning up stuff that I'm cabling and wiring and moving stuff around that shouldn't have even been there. But I'll just say, and it's not to get on the vendor, but it's just to say for everyone when we do work, neatness counts because, you never know who's going to come behind you. And you don't want to leave a bad impression.
Well, I'll even take it a step further, right? And I think it's an ability of just laziness in general. Because I think that it also helps when, if you're there, and this is something that John taught me, is that whenever, and this is just a principle in life that I got from him is always leave something better than you found it. And so, and I've taken that to heart. It's actually a lesson I've taught my daughter as well. But really, when it comes down to when you're trying to like standardize, right? Like when you're down there, I make sure that I go through all the equipment and make sure like are they all labeled? Are the cables labeled? Have I made sure that all the equipment is labeled and updated in our system? Have I taken up pictures so that they're updated so that people can tell from like my remote guys that can say, hey, I see the picture here. Do you see a box right there mounted on the wall? Stuff like that. But also just like, if you see a mess, try and tidy it up. But, if it's going to require another visit, highlight that. Hey, this place is a mess. I think it's really helpful for you and me if I get back there, redo all this so that I can make sure that I can make sense of what's going on. Because if I don't, it's going to be a problem. So, and I think it just helps, shows that you care, right? That the appearance of your work, but B, it'll make it easier for your client later on when you're trying to troubleshoot something with them on the phone. Which I will tell you, I don't highlight a lot of products often because our stack is pretty solid. But have you ever used ConnectWise control on their Pro plan? Or you know where I'm going with this? The View?
Yes.
Okay.
With the View. Yes.
Very slick on how that works. So me and John were trying that out the other day because that's what our remote access tool that we go back and forth on. And so when we were using it, we were thinking like, all right, well, FaceTime me. And we're like, oh, what's this View thing? And so it's easy to help a client just like try and go ahead and look at the equipment just from their phone. So, and it's cross-platform from what I understand as well. So pretty cool. Something to highlight as well as you're kind of, I want to say messing around, but like as you're helping investigate what the issue is going on for as far as like lights are going on and things like that.
Right. It's actually great. I've used it a couple of times with clients to have them to basically send them sends a text message. They get a code. They enter the code in, and then you're connected. Basically, you can see through their phone what's in basically their phone's camera, what's in front of you, so you can then direct them as to what needs to be pushed, reset, or whatever needs to be done.
Any lights or anything like that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that is something I definitely think is a text best friend is, and I think I can't remember. What is it called? What's it called?
I believe it's called ConnectWise Control View.
It's View, right? View.
Yeah, it's on their
down in the right hand corner.
Their whatever their most like premium plan or whatever,
right? The premium plan
that has. Yeah. So, yep.
Okay. So let's slide on into today's topic, which is local tactics, and that is basically what are you doing to promote encourage, grow your business locally? What steps are you taking to do that? So, Paco, you are the man who is, you're the growth, you're the peer of the year. So I'm always going to
Oh,
you first.
jeez. You
I'm gonna
would.
ride that till the wheels fall off, buddy.
That's too funny. I'm actually trying to find this local SEO JPEG to kind of show that I had hinted at last time. But really, what for the topic of today, I was really trying to figure out ideas of what are local tactics that we are trying to implement that we've heard others do to really try and generate business, generate leads. I think there's a big misconception that sales and marketing are the same thing. And I will argue with anyone who tries to tell me that the two are the same because I believe they are not. Same as where inside of marketing and inside of sales, there are functions inside of those two departments that are vastly different as well, to the point where and I made these mistakes in the beginning where I had an account executive try to do list building and try to do active telemarketing as well for cold call, and those two roles are very different, even down to the closer. When it comes to a cold closer is not going to want a cold call all day. They want to be able to close the leads that come in. Same thing with the marketing side is like you have lead gen, you have the strategy, you have the implementation of it, you have the social, and then you have the entire piece of what is the strategy that's going to tie into this whole thing, right? So there's multiple things and multiple ways, but with local tactics, what are we doing? What are we trying to actually take care of so that we have the ability to gain local attraction, right? Because I think for a majority of our listeners, we're trying to do obviously the three pieces. We're trying to increase revenue, reduce costs, and expand our market share. Those are what my one of my good friends, Victor Antonio, would say is the holy trinity of sales. And so the biggest piece to that is how are you trying to do these three things? How are you trying to really gain access to clientele or prospects that are looking for your services, right? Well, local, in my opinion, has always been a very strong plus for any person who is trying to really focus and really try to gain clients in their own area. Whether you are someone that's going on a 6x6 radius, which Jeff Hallish is how he operated his break fix shop, to someone who's doing maybe regional, where I happen to focus on the Midwest, mostly in Illinois, upper below in the lower half of Wisconsin, and also in Northwest Indiana. So really depending on, and then there are those that are nationwide, right? So really you got to figure out what you want to support, where you want to go to, and then figure out how do you want to expand from there. So one of the ideas where, in my opinion, you kind of break these out into four quote unquote sections, right? You have those that you can do internal. You have those that you could do outdoor. Well, external, meaning you can do outdoor and indoor activities. And then you have the ability of really trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I help with networking in the sense of how do I do peer to peer and really focus on how do we align and go from there? And I'll give you an example on a peer to peer example, because this is the tactic, and I'll start with this tactic. This has been the tactic that has been successful for me on trying to establish my growth. So I actually had volunteered at a local association, which is similar to a chamber of commerce. There was several IT companies that were members at this particular association. So it's not like a BNI where you have one industry that speaks on behalf of that industry. There are quite a few in the area. And for those that may be in a metro area, there may be multiple in your city inside that piece, where there's a good chance you could do some research to figure out, do they have a much higher revenue size than you? So you can achieve this by multiple things. Do they have more employees? Do you see that they're much more out there with their marketing? There are ways that you can tell if a client or if another peer, whether they're break fix, managed services providing, or IT solution providing, is bigger than you, right? Now, if that's the case, they probably have criteria that don't meet what you are trying to get for your business, especially if you're early on, you're trying to scale, or, you have a definition of a size business. So for us, our main focus was any business that was 20 users or less. So that's how we first started. And so when we first started with 20 users or less, a lot of people would not even look at those type of companies. And so when I would always go to a sales pitch, or when I would go to a pitch, whether it's to a peer or to someone else, and but we'll stay specific to the peer, is, hey, look, you're spending Google advertising, you're spending Bing advertising, you're spending all this advertising dollars to try and attract these prospects. You qualify, which everyone should be qualifying their leads. You determine it's not a good fit. Those leads would end up being lost leaders. You just lost time. You just lost your clicks. You just lost your time, your efforts for there. Why don't you assemble that list, provide it to us, and we will go ahead and pay you a finder's fee? Now, you can discuss and figure all this out however you want. I have swapped out the first month's monthly recurring revenue with some MSPs that I partner with. I have swapped out time. So, like, for some that don't meet our criteria and someone that is in a different industry, I'll say, okay, well, I need you on boots on the ground. If you close this client, give me an hour, hour and a half of your time, depending on how big or how the solution is from there. But you can get creative on how you work these finders fee. Now, all MSPs may just say, no, we're not going to do that because we don't know you from Joe Schmo over there. But, that's your opportunity to say, okay, no problem. But let's continue the dialogue. Let's continue the conversation, because I think our industry has gotten really good about trying to help everybody. And I think that once you ask for help, they're very lenient to listen, to hear what you have to say. So peer-to-peer networking and peer-to-peer referrals are a huge avenue of growth that you have, especially when it comes to referrals, because, as you know, word of mouth is so strong when it comes to from clients. But also, I think the biggest piece is having someone that is basically has a flurry of these referrals that possibly are calling them, kicking the tires, and doesn't qualify them, but to have the ability to qualify them, you now have a qualified lead that is more likely to close because it didn't just meet the criteria of that bigger MSP/IT solution provider. So that's one of the ideas for local tactics on what you can try and do, to make sure that you can try and get a couple more lead gen or prospects coming in so that you can talk to them and try and close them as clients. Rick, any of those that I've talked about? I've been talking for a while. Any local tactics that you have considered / tried / maybe there's a thing that you don't want to do anymore, and maybe that's something that's burned you per se?
Well, I'll tell you this. I've tried now. Well, I've done, and I do this because, we used to be break fix for a long time. So we still get a lot of calls from people about break fix. So when I started to make the transition, and I noticed I had a lot of people still calling me for break fix, I went to 2 local shops in the area, said to them, hey, I have a lot of a lot of people who call me for, laptop repair or, some kind of break fix job. I no longer do that. Um, I'd like to, send them to you. The guy's like, sure, great. And I said, okay, now I notice you guys don't do managed service. So if you get businesses and like that, if you don't mind, if you look for somebody, if they're coming in, look for somebody for things that you don't do, let us know, or, drop our name, and, we'd appreciate it. Basically, I'm thinking of it as a mutual benefit situation, right?
Sure.
So I went to 2 places like that. One the guy was like all chipper about it. Yeah, sure. And I send people to him all the time, right? And I say, hey, tell him, when you get there, ask for Mike, tell him Rick sent you, from Rick from Renactus, tell him Rick sent you, right?
Yep.
So, I don't know. I must have referred a bunch of people to him. Never heard anything from him, which was fine, but I'm not doing the work. Somebody calls me on the phone. I'd like to get him. I still want to help him. So I say, hey, we no longer do that, but call Mike at XYZ company. He can help you. I went to another company that opened up, a newer guy, and I tried to say, tell him too, as well as, hey, we get business. I get a lot of calls. I used to be break fix. Give him my card, all this stuff. Say, hey, I used to be break fix. I get calls. If you're interested, I would not mind, I can give people your information if you want. He was like, nah, he was basically grumpy about it, like suspicious, as if I'm trying to scam him. So I was like, okay.
Right.
So a funny thing happened is I happened to be at a client's location who's a doctor, who this guy is a patient of.
Okay.
So I'm at the client's location doing work, and I come out and he recognizes me, and I recognized him, but I couldn't remember where I recognized him from.
Yeah.
You know, so I just couldn't remember. And he was like, "Hey, you remember?" He said, "You remember me?" And I said, "You look familiar." Make a long story short, I figured out who he was, or he reminded me who he was. Then all of a sudden, he realized I was legit. He said, "What do what are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, this is my client. I do, managed service work for them. I've been my client for like 4 years, blah, blah." "Oh, wow, you do that." So I remember you told me before, he said, "You never sent anybody to me." I said, "You act," and I told him, I said, "Well, you act like you wasn't interested." So, you know,
Right. Right.
I just been sending. He said, "So what do you do with all those people?" I said, I told him exactly who I send them to. I told him
Yeah.
the other business. I told him exactly who I sent them to. So it's just funny because every now and then now he calls me, "Hey, don't forget, if anybody calls, just send me a referral," and I will
Yeah.
if it happens. But it's part of my spiel now. When somebody calls, I send them the mic. It's just because it's usually just
Well, you have that relationship, right? Like that's
right.
kind of what you established on there. I mean, I did a similar thing where we didn't do mobile repairs when we were a break fix shop. So we actually called a local iPhone and uh, Android cell phone repair shop nearby. Seemed like they were like top in Yelp and all this other stuff, and they were cool. Like they were like, "Yep, we expanded here, and we'll give they're like, we'll give you 5% for whoever you send us, and then we actually will give 5% off for the client as well." So I was
Mhm.
like, I really don't care about the money. So if you can give them the full 10%, that would be better for them or whatever. So, and we did that, and like every time there was a phone repair clump, we'd send them over. And that's kind of how that whole piece worked out. But it's just a matter of like, once you've established that relationship and they're good people, you, like you said, you just kind of rattle it off. And that's just kind of where it's at as
Mhm.
well. It was actually going to be my story earlier where, I'm not going to say we fired this client. We had a very great it was like a mutual breakup is basically what
Mhm.
happened. It was a really great conversation on how two partners realized that we're not providing value to each other and it's just not part of the goals that we were trying to figure out. So it just worked out really well. And so through that, I already knew my game plan was refer him to this other IT solution provider because they're the boots on the ground. He has actually helped me out. He's familiar with the site. So it's like it's a no-brainer for what they were trying to need for. Um, but it just goes to tell you, like, when you have those relationships, you know who to send, who you can trust, and kind of go from there.
Right. And it's just I would say as another thing to do locally is always try, like you said, you join in New Jersey. We're made up, I think, I hope I don't get this number wrong, but I think it's 256 like little towns and townships that make up the state,
Okay.
with a couple of major cities like Newark, Elizabeth, and Camden, and a couple of other places, right? Everything else is these little small 5 mile, 8 mile, 5 to 8 square miles of townships that run next to each other. So really, to be local here means you service about 6 towns, 6 to 10 towns, just because everything is that small. But what we
Funny, I
try to
just
do,
Googled ours right now and just said we Illinois has 102 counties and we have 1,300 municipalities
wow,
inside of Illinois.
okay.
So hot damn. But I'm sorry, you were saying.
No, I'm just saying. So it's just made up of these little towns, and so what we try to do, because we are based in Union, which
Mhm.
is but then there's you can throw a rock in 5 directions and be in another town from Union. So it's always good to and that's the honest
Yep.
truth. Union touches about 5 other towns in each direction. So it's always good to just do something, try to do some local things um in the area, whether that's co-sponsoring something with a local business, or just really getting your name, because just getting your name out, volunteering or whatever it may be. Just it's always a good way to get. I guess the word I'm looking for is just getting, not graces, but to get some, get positive
Feedback.
name recognition from your,
Okay.
from people, just getting your name recognized. Um,
So it's
and
funny you say that, because I was actually going to go into how you can successfully throw events. And so I think a big piece of that. So let's wind it back, right? You obviously said, hey, there's a way that you can co-sponsor, and kind of go from there. Now, did you mean co-sponsor as far as, if there's a fair, or if there's like a we have a festival called Taste of Randolph, and it's similar to Taste of Chicago, but they close all of Randolph down on Father's Day weekend, and it's a lot of food vendors, some of the bigger like AT&T and T and things of that nature that kind of go from there. And so, we will take a part of sponsoring events like that. We even co-sponsor or sponsor local events. We actually just, because I'm of Puerto Rican descent, there's a podcast called Boricua Talks that was highlighting strong Latina women, and really figuring out their process. So they were having a event on International Women's Day, and so I sponsored that event. Had my three of our team members go down there to represent the company. So those are some ideas as far as sponsoring. Was that what you were referring to, or were you thinking
yes,
more of like you throwing your own? Okay, gotcha.
no, just
So
yeah.
yeah, so I'll let you continue on that.
No. I was just, and those are just ways to get your name, seen somewhere. And you never know. Sometimes, and it's always funny how you've done something and your name or your logo appears somewhere, and then you tell somebody where you're from or who you are, what your company is, say, I know that from somewhere, and it may be that
Right.
they've seen you on the web or they've seen your
Yeah.
logo somewhere. But those are always ways to ingratiate yourself with people, and people remember that. And um a lot of times, particularly in smaller towns, businesses rely on each other for business.
Mhm.
They rely on each other for business, rely on each other for referrals. They do business with the next business, right? The guy next door
Right.
who, owns this shop takes his clothes to the guy, the cleaners next door, or whatever. Um, and that's always a way, it's a sign of goodwill. And you get to know people, know your neighbors or whatever. And that always helps to increase business, because it just, and I always say this is something I remember from my dad a long time ago. It only takes one person to say the right thing about you to take your business or yourself to the next level, right? It only takes
Mm.
one. You may be waiting on that one or working on that one, but it only
Yeah.
takes one person you can be kind to or do something for, that returns the favor for you, and it
Yeah.
changes your life. So, it's always a good idea. That's what I say also. So it's a good idea, when opportunities come, take advantage of them, but also just, I say this all the time, be nice to people. Always be pleasant, because people remember those things. So that's why even when people call me on the phone, and it may drive me crazy still that people ask me for break fix work, I always try to help them out. I'll try to talk them through a problem if it's something easy, and then I'll say,
Right.
hey, we don't do this, but call Mike at this number and tell him Rick sent you. But and they always appreciate it. I've had two people, and I remember this distinctly, I've had two people call me back after they got help to tell me, hey, thanks a lot for sending me. And one guy asked me, said, well, now what do you do that's different? And I said, well, we work with businesses, blah, blah. He said, well, I have a cousin. I'm going to give him your name because he owns a print shop, and they always complain about the computers. I never heard from the cousin, but I mean, again, he may have given the cousin a name because it's like, hey, I already got a guy or whatever. But those
Yeah.
things, they go a long way. And I just think, again, goodwill goes a long way.
So it's funny you say that, right? There's a quote that when you said that, I was reminded of that, that says, it's nice to be important, but it's important to be nice.
Right.
And it really drives on that conversation. But I'm going to tell you a story, and you may remember this, but I had a rep at a vendor that we use, or loosely we use. We used to use them. We're going to use them again. Um, and great dude. A little salesy, but he kind of knew, that's his job, right? Account executive. He had to figure out his thing. He was my rep kind of from there. Um, the vendor let him go. And so he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, if you happen to know of anything, let me know. I'm actually not interested in going back to a vendor. I'm actually interested in going back to, looking at working at an MSP or whatever the case may be." So happened a buddy of mine, who's a pretty much bigger MSP, rocking it, killing it, was looking for a BDR, a business development rep. I was like, "Hey, let me connect you to. I think it might be a benefit to you." Sure enough, MSP hired him. It was great. Things were good. Apparently, they killed it so hard that they got acquired by another bigger MSP that we actually had on the show many months ago, or actually a couple years ago. And they were all golden. My buddy sent me a Sam the Cooking Guy knife. Long story. It's a YouTube creator. If you check him out, he's hilarious on doing cooking. But here's where it comes to being nice. Me and the guy weren't cool like that. He was my rep. And again, wanted to help him out. Had no whatever. Come to find out, his dad owns a law firm in Chicago. Gave the referral because I guess their MSP screwed up. We pitched them, closed them. They became a client. And so if it wasn't for that relationship of just being, not nice or like looking out for someone without
Mhm.
any expectation of getting anything back, I probably wouldn't have got that client. And so that was just another version of just seeing that, again, you just never know how you can affect someone in passing, nor can you see how they're going to affect you with, and again, had no clue, had no idea. He may have mentioned it in passing, but everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I refer to him." Yeah, yeah, yeah. You hear that all the time, right? With people, but again, just goes back to when you do put your best foot forward and you really do care genuinely, it just always comes back to you three
Right.
times, 10 times over. And I've always been a big believer in whatever you put out, you always get it back 10 times.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, are you doing
So
anything else? Like, are you when you look at just even one of the things they say for local business always your Google page, your Google homepage, um, your SEO for your website, things like that. You always hear if you're working and focusing on local business, you include that
mhm.
somewhere. Are you doing any of that or?
So yes, I did. I'm going to actually revisit it. There's a local SEO image that I will be sharing to the Patreon supporters that I just actually found the image right now that will guide you on where you should go as like a map into doing SEO. And the only reason why I'm saying for Patreon because I feel like those that support us should get something, dedicated to them. But there is an image, and you can probably Google it and find it right there. But it basically will help you understand how to start from a starting point on how to improve your local SEO. And I mean, it's very like in depth. It basically says, you know, do you have local listings set up? No. Are you on the page one of Google? Okay, no. Here's where you start. Create a Google My Business, create a Bing local, create a Yahoo local. If it's in the US, go to, create your account via Yext. Have you optimized your listings? If it's no, do you have your business name? Do you have your address? Do you have your contact info? Do you have your category? So it goes into a huge like infographic roadmap of how to optimize your local SEO. I found it very helpful. I will send it to you, Rick, obviously. But it was a really great start. And and the only reason why I hyped this up is because once I did all this, I noticed that there was a company before Tech Marketing Engine that I was using who was working on reputation building. And come to find out, when I started doing this on my own, they actually had took over some of those accounts on our behalf while we hired them. So when I ended up leaving them and doing it on our own, we had to take ownership from them to us. But it just proved to me that they were doing the same thing that this thing was telling us to do, kind of moving
Okay.
forward. And so, and obviously we'll have a session about this at TechCon as well for those that are interested. But this is where local SEO, a lot of people think SEO is BS. And there are people that feel like it's just witchcraft and snake oil. There are those that believe the benefit of it, right? I just think that there are people that just don't understand the algorithm. And the algorithm always changes, but it's always about the benefit and having good outputs and good information. Now, what I am concerned about is with local SEO, there's content creation, and I think a lot of people are leveraging Chat GPT for a lot of this information, which I think is helpful. I have a feeling that Google or whoever the search engines are, maybe not Bing, will end up updating their algorithm that if it's content created by the AI, it may ding it because it's not it. There's no way to tell if someone is just genuinely creating this data for that site, or did they just happen to spin something up fast enough and then dump all this data to look legitimate. So that is something that I'm just put out on there for local SEO and make sure that your listings are not ding down. But that's a concern of mine that I have. I have
Yeah.
utilized the tool very much. Curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've read something. I wish I could remember where or watched a YouTube video talking about that. And one of the things it
Yeah.
said is this: the way Google looks at things is plagiarism, right? They look for if
Mhm.
the information doesn't seem, if it's you get dinged the same way if you use a market, if everyone uses the same marketing company and we all put a
Same
blog
blog
out,
post. Yeah.
right? A blog post. That's why they tell you to put a not follow on there so that the Google
Right.
bots don't pick it up, right?
Right. Right.
So
And if you
it's
haven't done
similar
that,
with
do it now so you can, it'll hopefully fix your stuff up so that when it does
right.
the rescan.
And so it chat GPT and things like that will work very similar. That's why they tell you chat GPT, I think, is awesome and it gives some great ideas and can give you a starting point.
Yep.
But the best thing to do with that is to take what they give you and then put it into your own speak,
Right.
put it in your own words, rewrite it. Use the, I mean, I don't think that you can get dinged for borrowing and that's a bad word, but for getting the idea right. Borrowing sounds like stealing,
Borrowing.
um but getting an idea from the AI, because that happens all the time, right?
Sure.
So you can get an idea or get a start on how to do something. But I think where we will get dinged is if I don't know how sophisticated chat GPT is, and so but if I wonder if you ask a question from Chicago and I ask a question from New Jersey of the same topic, the same exact topic, and we put in the question and word it exactly the same, will chat GPT give you and I the same exact wording? Do you
I'm
understand what I
not
mean?
sure. Yeah, no, I
Right.
get what you're
And
saying. Yeah, I'm not sure because I feel like it's funny because I've now noticed some people who write blogs and the way that it's like they post it and publish it, I can tell that it's Chat GPT because the
mhm,
way that it structures the conversation, like in conclusion and in advance, and like there's
right.
these words that like are very synonymous in different weird ways that I could tell that that was an output from Chat GPT. So exactly like you said, will it be the same? It depends on how you ask it, right? I mean, if you happen to put the same wording and insert city, will it provide the same action? I don't know. I think that's an interesting concept that we can test out, maybe on a later time, because I'm actually quite curious to see will it. But enough on the Chat GPT stuff. I'm sure everybody's heard that dead horse being beaten, but and yes, PETA, no horses have been hurt. But one other item that I want to talk about, and I actually got this from Juan Fernandez, who was on our show before, is he used to run the MSP division or ran the MSP segment outside in the business that he was at. And he was very successful about it. And what he told me was out of all of the things that he did, the most successful thing that he did, and he's open to sharing this information to anyone that asks him, is throwing a trade show. He says that holding a show or an event for them has garnered them more qualified leads than any other lead gen opportunity or system that they put in place. And so when we were talking about it, he was saying, "Hey, I'm sure that the vendors are throwing money at you right now." And I was like, like throwing as in like for TechCon, because like we have a few great supporting sponsors, which we thank you all who are tuning in. But he's like, no, like, are they, your vendors you're using, are they giving you MDF and supporting you on your endeavors? I was like, no, I didn't even think about. He's like, dude, you can throw a show. You clearly can show that you can throw a show. Why aren't you doing that for yourself? Or, I mean, not to say that this is all for everybody, but
Right, I
like,
got you.
why aren't you doing it for
For
ProdigyTeks?
ProdigyTeks. Right.
And so, and it's just one of those, well, I didn't think about that, because, everyone hears about MDF and, and and I will tell you, the one vendor that I had to deal with MDF when it shouldn't have been MDF, and that's a whole nother rant for those that know me, who know what I'm talking about, was a pain in the whatever you want to fill in the blank with. It was like drawing teeth. And I've heard this story before. When trying to get MDF, it's a pain to try and get MDF from vendors. And so that's why people don't do it. There was somebody, I forgot who it was, that was at stage at one of the conferences, that they were saying something like $70 million was unused at that vendor's MDF, because either A, no one knew about it, or B, invalid claims or something like that. I think it was that was the highlight, but I think what was added onto that was no, because people don't want to freaking file it because it's such a pain in the butt. But anyway, I'm kind of going away from the point of what I'm trying to say. But the main issue is what I'm saying is that, since then, I have worked with some of my vendors and I have tried to work out something to kind of go from there. I was just talking to an IT solution provider who has a really creative way that he's doing it virtually and providing really great content to those that are listening as well in a virtual aspect. So what I say to you on this is, let's say you are interested in throwing an event, and I'm not talking about a lunch and learn with like your local auto insurance
Doctors.
rep,
Okay.
or someone in your BNI group. I'm talking about someone that can speak to what you're trying to preach, what you're trying to talk about. So, for example, let's say you have a password manager, the importance of password management. Reach out to your vendor. Hey, I want to do a webinar. I want to be able to do like a $5, $15 lunch gift voucher to 100 people. Is that anything that, and my hope is that I close 25% of those. Is that something you want to come in with me on? If so, can I borrow one of you? Can you come on? Can I borrow you to jump on and go from there? And let you work out a plan, because they want you to, if it's a great vendor relationship, they're going to want to work with you so that A, you grow and they're doing their diligence and their benefit to the community, but also on the back end, they make money too, because you're going to be selling out their product and
If you
increase
get
your
a new client,
units
they
and
get
go
a
from
new
there.
client.
They get a new client as well. Exactly. And so for those that are doing it right. So I'm in talks with a couple of my vendors right now to do this same thing. But what I will tell you, and I suffer from this a lot, is the over analysis paralysis. And this is how I'll kind of round out my piece of
Welcome to
this.
the
And
club.
unless Rick has anything else to add on to this, is you just got to do it. I mean, I can tell you all the, like, if you look at the flags that I have on my task list in my email, and I'm literally looking at it right now, I have so many great ideas and so many vendors that I've worked with that we're ready to pull the trigger, but I have not. And I've given the excuses of, I don't have the time. I want to make sure I have the right strategy in place. I want to make sure that I have the flow right. I want to make sure that I do this. It's all bull. you have to really you gotta do it. I mean, there's no other way around it. Like I just finally told my rep, I said, let's do it. Here's the date, whether I'm ready or not. If it's gonna suck, we're gonna do it. This is what we want to try and do. Let's take care of it. Let's start getting people to sign up, kind of go from there. And you don't have to worry about an expensive platform. Microsoft Teams does webinars now that you could do for signups and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You can use Zoom as a quick pinch. I think even StreamYard now has webinar
Yep.
capabilities, and it's not a bad platform. And that's the platform we use for streaming and recording our podcast and stuff like that. All I can tell you is that you just got to do it and learn from the mistakes and get better later on. Because I could tell you this, the more you continue to keep doing it, the more you continue to keep growing, you're going to get better. No one's going to realize the ones that you feel that suck are going to suck. And then you can just continue to keep doing those collaborations with your vendors on things like password management, security awareness training, live threat hunting, things that people care about, especially if it's timely. I think right now people are just kind of concerned with what's going to happen with their stuff. They're unsure of. They're trying to figure out how they can keep up and stay in business. Do a session on productivity and operational stuff. I mean, there's so many topics and things that you can try and do. You just got to do it. I can guarantee you that there's going to be a time when you're doing all these things, and as Rick mentioned, something's going to click, and then you're going to be like, "Huh, this was a good one. Let's do
Mhm.
more of this." And I did several webinars for a nonprofit, and I was like, not feeling this one. I'm not feeling this one. And then when I merged them, that's when I got so many more people thinking like, man, this is great and this is awesome and whatever, whatever. Um, it was really good on how that worked. And for anyone who wants those slides, I'll give you those slides for I think it was like a cybersecurity. I think it was a cybersecurity, password management, and then like a phishing 101 session or whatever. So if you're interested in those, I can send those to you. If you're interested, just email me at Paco at MSP or even at info, and then that way Rick can poke me in case I miss your email. He can just nudge me to make sure I get that over to you. But yeah, those are going to be things that I could share as well. But yeah, again, just start, just do. That's going to be the best way for you to kind of continue, and then you just continue with your local tactics.
Sounds good. There's a. I was thinking about you talking about the webinars. There is
Mhm.
an MSP. I am trying to remember his name. I believe is Zachary Kitchen. I believe that's his name. I'll try to find him, and report back, and maybe even get him on the show. I know he's been very successful with doing a lot of those webinars like that, and I
Mhm.
believe he's been using, been co-sponsoring it with. I don't want to give false advertising, so hopefully I'm right on this, but he's been co-sponsoring it with some vendors and
Yeah.
has been having success with those,
Yeah.
webinars. I'm going to research the name. Just when you said it, it popped in my head, and I was trying to
Yeah.
think of his name. Um, but I think he's been successful with that. So it's out there, guys. There are
Yeah.
a lot of ideas that are out there that opportunities for us to take advantage of. The one thing I've realized, like I say, in my town, and I was wrong on one thing, is 564 um, municipalities in New Jersey, not 264.
Oh
So
wow.
anyway, I just Googled it just to make sure it was right. Um, but and even in my township of Union, where we're based, there are I think there's 17 in the township itself, and then another 40 within a 5-mile radius, and there's still enough business to go around for all of us, right?
Yeah.
So I say that just to say there are opportunities out there, and whether you think you're in a saturated market or not, there are opportunities out there, and new businesses are formed every day. New businesses are finding they need our services every day. Some who don't who don't realize it, until it's too late, but or until they know when they realize they know. Like, you know what I mean by that. Something goes wrong and they realize they need your help. So anyway,
Yeah.
I just say so taking into account what you're talking about webinars, about just partnering with local businesses, about making sure your local SEO is set up correctly. All of those things will, eventually, pay homage to you. I will say this: it is not a short term game; it is a long term game. Um,
Mhm.
so you have to be prepared for that. But it's well worth it if you're in business for a while, and I've talked to another MSP friend of mine in Texas who told me this, hey, and just stay with the marketing, stay with the marketing, stay with the marketing. So you won't even realize you're doing stuff. And then one day you'll get a call, then you get another call, you get another call, you get another call. And you probably won't realize that those are people you marketed to 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, who just keep seeing your stuff or you somehow stuck in their head. And then they're calling you and he said, it happens. Sometimes that it feels like they got the dam closed and then all of a sudden they open a dam and the floodgates open and you just get all these people. So, one of the things he told me is keep marketing and also stay sharp and be prepared. So when that dam does break and
Mhm.
you get all of those, you are positioned to take advantage of it. You don't screw that up basically. So you're positioned to take on the new business, so that's why again, for another topic, but having the systems in place, and the just being prepared, again, one of the things I talked about before, and I'll end with this. Even when you start your business, and I wish I'd have known this when I started, but you know, you run your business even as a one person shop till you grow to whatever, but you run your business today when you start based on how you want your dream is to grow the business, right? So if you're going to be a 5, 10, 20 person shop, that's what your dream is. That's how you run it, even when it's just you. And then that way, when things come up like that and you're in and the floodgates open, you're prepared. So I'll leave it with that. Paco, any final words from you?
Other than head over to TechConUnplugged.com to go ahead and get your early bird tickets. They will be ending March 31st. So head over to TechConUnplugged.com and get your early bird tickets. We are adding and updating the website with new speakers, and the agenda will be on its way here soon. We got a great content committee that's working hard. I'm super excited to announce when that agenda comes out. So you're going to want to get your early bird tickets soon. So before you hear about the all the greatness that we're going to be having and you get FOMO, you want to go ahead and get those tickets at techununplug.com. You heard it here
Shout
first,
out to
folks.
I want to give a shout out to the committee though. They are working hard and I appreciate all of their work. Again, thank you for all your hard work, your sacrifice, and the biggest sacrifice, they give up their time to help to make
Yep,
this a great show. And I just
absolutely.
always want to acknowledge them and say thank you for that because I do realize it and I appreciate it. So I think we're going to wrap up there. We will again like to thank you for tuning in today. We'd like to remind you to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged, or you can catch us on our Facebook page, MSPUnplugged.com. Facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. We would like for you to like, subscribe, hit that notification button. That does help us out. You'll be notified whenever a new episode is available. If you prefer to take us on the move, you can take us on the go with your favorite podcatcher app. We are on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. For Paco and I, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.